Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order today's April 17th meeting of the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. Today we have a new face with us as well.
Yeah, Chair Hoffman, let me introduce Doug Brutches, and let me know if I'm not pronouncing your last name right.
It's Brooks, just as
Brooks.
it was spelled.
Oh, okay, Brooks. Doug Brooks joins us. He has educational background in urban and regional planning and a strong interest in Hood River's development, and also is our first member who's very close, at least very, very close to the West Side Urban Renewal District, was right on the border. So great to get that representation. And with that, I'll let Doug introduce himself to the group.
Yeah, I'll just say very briefly that I'm excited to be here. I'm particularly the balance of all the work that's
Thank you. Happy to have you. It was a pleasure to interview you as well. You have a lot of good experience that I think will be beneficial. Okay, next item, audience items. I don't think we have an audience this evening. Nobody online except for, you said Jeff is online with us? Okay, so next up then, agenda additions or corrections, anyone?
I will have more updates under the administrator update than just the Mariposa Village, but that's just a note.
Okay. Then we have the approval of the meeting minutes from the March 20th, 2025 meeting. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? I did not personally see any.
I'm not going to vote on this because I wasn't here, but I thought I saw a spelling error, but I can't figure out how to highlight it. I don't see it now, so.
Okay.
It was an obvious one to me.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as? Okay. Do a second? Okay. Jeff?
So we might not have a quorum, we don't know when the votes then.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll clarify, council has counseled us several times that you don't have to be present in a meeting to approve the minutes. But we can also set it aside if we'd like for a future meeting.
That seems logical. Not knowing what, I mean, I trust that they're right, but I couldn't vote on that because I can say.
Sure. Well, we can, yeah, table it and schedule for our next meeting.
That sounds fine. Okay, moving forward. We will approve those next meeting. Regular business items. Number 1, Heights District Utility Cost Sharing Memorandum of Understanding. Will, take it away.
Thanks. And I don't have a memorandum of understanding for you tonight. This is really just starting the discussion and getting the concept kind of front of mind for us to work out before we get really deep into the Heights Streetscape implementation. You know, the whole Heights Streetscape plan could cost as much as $72 million, and that doesn't include any water, sewer, or storm improvements. And there are many water, sewer, storm projects needed on the Heights, and those were originally anticipated and budgeted for in the Heights Urban Renewal Plan that was approved in 2011. They expected it would fund some underground utilities. So obviously, with 72 million in streetscape projects and only about $6.5 million left in maximum indebtedness in the district, we'll have some major resource constraints and weighing as we consider what projects to fund. So I wanted to start this this discussion early on the front end, so we're not so we can align expectations, plan effectively, and not sort of make these decisions on an ad hoc basis as we go forward. So I've in the packet, I put together kind of 3 broad ways that we could cost share with the city when there is a planned water, sewer, or storm utility project that would overlay with a streetscape project. And one is the Urban Renewal Agency just pays for it, pays for everything. Like I said, that is an eligible expense for urban renewal funds. And any thing paid by urban renewal will reduce the burden on utility ratepayers citywide, as those projects are then not put on rates. But then it will slow and diminish the amount of resources that we have for moving forward on Height Streetscape projects. There's a few $1 million worth of utility projects in the Heights, but their boundaries are not confined to the same boundaries as the Heights district. So there's also questions of what components of larger projects, like if a water line extends all the way down Taylor, we'd only be doing that section that crosses through the Heights. So without additional engineering, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what the potential utility cost burden is. So this conversation is still more conceptual. But we could put it all in the Heights. We could, as kind of a third option, put the direct water sewer storm costs onto the respective utility fund. This is obviously going to be a joint decision between the agency and the city, because that's then their funding that pays for it. And have the agency pick up those shared costs which are not directly assignable. So the agency would pick up things like mobilization, maybe some of the design, if you can't really itemize that you were working on specifically the water part of the project or the street part of the project. Basically put all shared costs to the agency, but when you're strictly buying a piece of pipe, charge that to the water fund. So that's kind of option number 2. And then option number 3 would be put all directly assignable costs to the associated utility, and then also try to split up those shared costs proportionately. And that then is a little bit more of an accounting feat, but possible. And that third option would be if we wanted to make sure we reserve the maximum amount of dollars just for Heights Streetscape and put the maximum amount offloaded onto the utilities. So one additional wrinkle or consideration that isn't in the staff report that has kind of come up as I've been talking to Public Works about this too, is they may not be budgeted to do these projects on the same timeline as when the Urban Renewal Agency may be able to move forward. So kind of on that spectrum, the more of the cost that is picked up at the Urban Renewal Agency, the more of a likelihood that everything can be done in sequence and you don't have to rip up a road again. So that's also kind of a consideration. Yeah, so again, this isn't making any decisions. I just wanted to surface this issue and so we can start discussing it. And so with that, I'll answer any questions or kind of get your thoughts about where to take this or what your initial inclinations are. Yeah, please. So that for the record and so that anyone watching on Zoom.
Sounds good. The compromise makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming there's maybe a established methodology for figuring out what that share is or when it extends beyond. There isn't a whole lot in the packet about that part, but I realize it's down the road. I was curious, like in general, how that works.
Yeah. In general, we haven't had a funding source that stops at an imaginary line. So it is, we don't have an existing methodology for that. We have, we're used to saying water goes to the water fund and stormwater. So we know how to split those costs up, but we haven't had a situation like this where we said everything that's water, west of a certain line gets this funding and everything east of a certain line gets another funding source. Yeah, so very much still needs to be worked out.
I will say I appreciate the difficulty in looking at the accounting nightmare of sharing the costs for the
you could even say the levels of service, because I think sewer was outdated back in 2011, and it's gotten no better since then, and it's this far away from failing. I think they're chasing their tails about that. Water is probably close behind that, and the electrical undergrounding, if that was a factor, would be the biggest bang for the buck up there for everybody involved. I think that would be the most noticeable improvement. Like parking, walking, cycling easier. That said, sharing it seems like the obvious choice, but in the interest of getting the job done and doing it once, efficiency wise, I think maybe it could be a tiered thing, like who can afford to budget it sooner rather than later helps out. And the urban growth picks up the rest, because this is sort of the minimal cost of the whole project is the utilities, I think, is that right? Well,
It's much smaller.
15% of the whole thing, or less than that?
Yeah, I think I had added it up at about $3-ish million.
Oh, way less than
Yeah,
that. Okay. 5%.
yeah, but I gotta say, this stuff, like this is pulling out of the CIP, it's very rough, and so
Yeah.
it's highly uncertain.
In appreciation of the difficulty of figuring out the cost, I
Yeah.
think it would be a shame to let the big picture hold any longer because of this sort of less expensive facet of getting the job done entirely. That's my 2 cents there.
So one concern was doing this work or doing it out or having to dig streets out again. You've got a streetscape project list with associated water sewer improvement projects. So I know last month, it was discussed that to make sure the whole project doesn't maybe at some point slow down and get forgotten, was to get the roundabout done, Main Street. And I don't see that one has a water sewer component to it. And I think last month I mentioned that there had been something associated with it, perhaps on the engineering side, somebody puts in the conduits or the sleeves or something so that if water sewer was done later, it wasn't driven up the roads here. I would just add that I think I do sort of agree with the overall concept that would like to see that roundabout go in. And I guess doesn't seem to be affected one way or another in this discussion tonight, other than making sure there's funds for it. And I guess if the city helps pick up some of these utility costs, there's more funds to maybe move ahead on something like the roundabout.
It looks like Jeff has a comment online.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
First of all, I can't turn on my video. It says that it's disabled on your end. So I don't know, but anyways, I can still talk. Well, the staff report recommends option 2, the compromise option. But then today you added some additional information about public works may not have budgeting. Does that change the staff recommendation, or are you still recommending option 2?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. It does make me much less confident in the recommendation. I think taking the perspective of the agency, I would still recommend 2 and say that's in the agency's best interest. And kind of fair. But I do think that this process of an MOU is surfacing that this is an issue that we need to work out. And so maybe we need to go with option number 1 just to keep things aligned, because I don't think anyone wants to, I don't think anyone wants to slow the Heights Streetscape project and just have it like sitting, waiting for public works to have the funding or the time to prioritize something in the Heights underground. And at the same time, we don't want to ever rip up a road that we just recently constructed. And so I can kind of see, just following that logic path, kind of the only option is that the agency ponies up for the utility costs if the city can't afford it. So I kind of see us working in that direction. But yeah, number 2 would still be preferable.
It sounds like number 2 with a heavy lean on number 1.
Sounds like, and that's what I heard from Clint as well.
Yeah, if I could
Uh-huh.
maybe. I'll try to say this again. I think option 1 might be the smartest route, and maybe this is a naive thought, but maybe we anticipate paying for all of it and ask for help wherever it can be given from the utilities, and with the understanding that we're all in the same city and it benefits everybody. So maybe that's the slickest way to get it done.
Does everyone else kind of agree with Clint?
Well, I guess I was thinking sort of the same thing, but
Mhm.
sort of an option 2 where we go with option 1 with the understanding
Preference is
they
option
get
2.
paid back. Public Works gets their funding.
Mhm.
So when their funding comes in a year later, that's when they reimburse.
Mhm. That's an interesting thought. Okay. Well, this has been helpful, and it's helpful to know that option number 1 isn't totally distasteful to the advisory committee. So with that, I won't move on too quickly, but anything else on this topic? I'll definitely bring it back before anything gets finalized.
Do we just amend a motion for this? It seems like maybe not quite.
Yeah, if what Clint,
If
like,
it helps to have a motion, I'm happy to do that. I'm
Yeah.
stuck on this like analogy of the person with 5 sacks of groceries ruffling it, paying 8 cents a bag for the bags at the checkout. It's $700 worth of groceries and can't pay another
yeah,
50 cents per bags. So I feel like getting it done is the important thing.
yeah,
It costs a little more because of the utilities to make it easy and to not disrupt all the businesses 2 or 3 times to fix the roads again and again
yeah.
over the next 5 years. That's great.
So that's what I'm hearing. I don't, if we can distill that down into a concise motion, that would be great. Uh-huh. So what I'm hearing is, option, number 2 in a perfect world is where we'd like to be. But we are okay with option 1. If that's what's necessary, to avoid ripping up a road twice. And to keep the High Streetscape plan, on track to move forward as quickly as it's able to move forward.
It's better than I did.
Write that down fast enough.
So moved.
We can get that off of the recording.
Jen?
Okay.
Yes, yes, so you support this motion?
Yes.
Yes, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of supporting the recommended motion that Will put together for us about options 1 and 2 with the Urban Renewal Agency?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye, yep, okay, unanimously approved. All right, next up is the QPL
Yeah,
project list.
and there's a ton here, and we've already talked about this quite a number of times, so I'll kind of take your lead as to how much depth to go into and how much time to spend on this. I think I'll just start with addressing how URAC comments have been incorporated, and then touch on any kind of high level things that have been added or subtracted. And the main piece of new information is the dollar amounts that are now attached to these scopes of work. Prior feedback from URAC when this was last before you was to consider prioritizing sidewalk connection between Mariposa Village and Sherman Avenue when sufficient West Side District funding is available. So basically put that in the list. So that comment went to the agency board, but that's not there's not sufficient funding for that right now. So it's not in this project list. For the Mariposa 2.0 project, there was the suggestion to evaluate all publicly owned properties and not just city-owned properties. And I am going to do that. Project just generally did not fit within a $10,000 limit. So I'm going to approach that by just doing it myself at a very high level. So the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District has grants to do phase one environmental analyses. They're called ESAs, environmental something analyses. So I'm going to apply for that for all the publicly owned parcels in town. Do my own just kind of research into the databases that we have access to here at the city, get the history, who owns it, what are high level the planning regulations that govern it, and kind of keep it at just that very, very high level. And then I'll bring that back here, and then we can narrow it down a little bit more before we go into deeper economic analysis.
Just for clarification, by high level, you mean very conceptual, shallow?
Just describing it. I'm just going to describe the state of the property, the ownership of the property, the regulations that apply to the property. And then we can narrow it down. But I am gonna incorporate the URAC feedback and include the property that the county owns over on the west side. That's kind of for affordable housing over the long term, the school district property, the ODOT property. I can't do a phase one ESA on that one because they've already said we've actually already applied for that separately, and they told us we couldn't do it. But I'll try to get permission for the other from the other owners to do that. So I'll bring that back. And there was also the comment that when considering alternatives to low income housing tax credit projects, the kind of alternative housing type research project, to consider the city's capacity and expertise and role in producing the housing type. Basically, is pursuing this like outside of our lane or not, is what I got. And that was from member Zan Miller. And so I did add that as a criteria, and that's in the scope of work now. We had feedback that for the Heights Streetscape implementation project, focus on putting in the roundabout as quickly as possible. So basically take the B line to it and say, this doesn't do that. This does 20% or sorry, 30% designs for the Heights Streetscape implementation identified projects 1 and 2, because those are the only ones that we have enough money to do anything towards at this point. The roundabout is just so large that 30% designs would be well outside of what we could do under the qualified pool list contract limits, and also we would have money to probably do 30% design. So, but I'd have to do a separate solicitation for that. We couldn't do it under the QPL process. And lastly, the development fee calculator was I said we consider adding an element that estimates property tax implementation or implications. And we talked to the vendor about that, and they said they're experts, and they did our urban renewal planning, and they're experts in property tax calculations. And they said it's too complicated. There's too many factors. You wouldn't be able to just put in kind of the details of an alteration or a building and have it kind of reliably tell you what your property tax is going to be. So unfortunately, we weren't able to accommodate that ask. So that's responding to kind of how the URAC input was implemented into the scopes. Overall, the whole budget is $295,000, with 100, the bulk of it being 170 to the Heights district, and that's with quite a bit of engagement. Big chunk of that budget is for community engagement. And I just had a range in here for the surveying of 40 to 50K. I got a quote today, Klein, it's going to be $40,800. So it's the very lowest of that range. 75,000 for the West Side District, 15,000 be covered by the city planning department because they're on board with funding the development fee calculator, and then 35,000 will be dependent on getting grant funding to support the Heights proportionate share project. So with that, I'll just kind of open up for questions, comments, or articulate if you want me to go deeper into any one of these projects. But I also want to just talk at you about projects we've already talked about.
Well, I'll start off by saying that this was a really encouraging summary to look at and everything. I felt, what a reasonable price for getting all of these off the ground pretty quickly. I think most of them had some timelines for completion of these initial scopes of work. And I will say, maybe I thought they were a little faster than I expected they might be, which is cool.
Yeah, I was pleased to see MIT back in there at the top. I think our relationship with them is stellar, and it's great to see that continuing. They earn their money and they do really good work. Yeah, it's unfortunate about the calculator, because I was really interested to see that. And I'm curious, is there another one of those somewhere we can play with online, like for some random city?
Not really, because so some of the issues, to not totally break it open, but you have what's called oh my gosh, and I'm blanking on the name, but basically because measures 5 and 50 have disconnected assessed value from actual value. So the assessor has to recalculate how much we've become divorced, so that from like reality, so that when something new gets built, that it can be that same ratio applied to it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you build a new house and your neighbor who has a house, has an assessed value of 300,000, but your house is 500,000. And it's like identical homes, they have to then have a ratio to bring you down, and that ratio changes every year. So that's one issue. Another issue is tax rates change every year.
I didn't want to derail us on that. It's a
Oh,
brilliant,
okay.
it's a brilliant concept. I don't remember who brought it, who asked for that, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
I'm sure it's
yeah.
a complex spreadsheet.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't have a suggested motion for you, but can just be supporting the scopes of work, as presented, and the scopes and budget as presented.
There are no additional comments or questions. Someone.
I would note that
Yeah.
the proposed. So, work, created so. That was presented.
All right, second.
I'll second.
Okay. Then we will have a vote on whether or not to support the motion to accept or recommend the scopes of work as written here today. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
right. Excellent. And the support of that. Right, let's get back to my agenda here at the beginning. Okay, and now for your update, Will.
Yeah, and it's expanded significantly from just Mariposa Village when this was printed. But that is the headline. So we closed on Mariposa Village today at about 2 p.m.
Nice.
So $75.8 million project, and all the folks from the permanent lender Citibank, the construction lender Chase, the tax credit investor Hudson Capital out of New York, community development partners, the developer, Big Columbia Housing Corporation. We all got our, thousands of pages of agreements, all came in all at once to the title company, all the signatures, and escrow closed today. So the city of Hood River no longer owns 780 Rand Road. Rand Road Limited Partnership does. And they're going to start construction staging as soon as next week.
Excited.
Yeah. Yeah. So huge. That's 5 years in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Where's the beers, Jen?
yeah.
Making me a little verklempt.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. We put up that sign that said affordable housing coming soon, I think like 4 years ago. And it's been nothing, and it's like over the next month, you're gonna see it just, that whole site just pop to life. It's gonna be great.
We're gonna get a lot of questions.
Yes.
For people who have not seen anything happen and suddenly.
Yeah. And I'll invite the URAC to the groundbreaking as well. Yeah. Still setting a date. Had, don't know how many of y'all remember that we're working with, we're a Portland State, engineering class is working on a capstone project where they're looking at options for connecting the Heights Business, District proper area along 12th Street, over to Pacific, kind of making that missing connection that the Heights Streetscape project didn't get to. So they're looking at several options from an engineering standpoint. And they are going to share their preliminary posters on Tuesday, April 22nd at 4 p.m. And it's going to be at the engineering building in Portland if any of you want to go. You're all invited. So from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And if any of you are interested in going, I'll send you this via email. Okay.
Yeah, can you just email it to all of us?
I'll just email it to all of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I'm gonna go. Jackie, our comms community engagement coordinator here at the city is gonna be there because she's kind of been working with them too. And but if you can't make it, they will also provide a electronic versions of the posters with a like short video explaining them that I'll be able to share with the group as well. But they're a great group of students, so I suggest like it'd be worth it if you can make it.
That's April 26th or May?
April 22nd,
Like next week.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
short notice.
Yeah.
Tuesday, April 22nd at 4 p.m. 4 to 5:30. And you can see what all the other student groups are working on too. And then so great to welcome Doug. Unfortunately, Travis Dillard has resigned from the URAC. He just wasn't able to make it with the time commitments. He wasn't feeling like he was giving it his all. So we were fully appointed. We didn't make a meeting with a full appointment, but there was a period of time. So we are advertising again, and word of mouth is one of the best ways. So if you know any good folks, the application is posted again. And then just a reminder that the URAC budget meeting, URAC acting as the citizen half of the budget committee with the URA board, will have its meeting on May 21st, 6 p.m. Here. And I don't think we're going to have any other URAC business. And since we're already having that meeting, I think I'll go ahead and cancel our May URAC meeting.
You said that was the 26th.
21st. Did I say 26th?
No, I heard incorrectly.
Okay, sorry. Or yeah, 21st. That's it.
That's it? You made it sound like it was gonna be much longer.
Well, 4 times longer than what was on the
But yeah,
agenda.
that was exciting. Okay, thank you very much, Will. And do we have any items from members today? No? Jeff? Jeff's got a hand raised.
Thank you. Well, I believe it's in the minutes regarding Mariposa Village. There's 30 units that are going to be priced at 30 AMI. Is that correct? That's a remarkable figure.
Yeah, those are the ones that we were able to do that because they were assigned what are they called? Project-based Section 8 vouchers. So usually Section 8 float with the applicant, but the housing authority has the ability to assign a certain number of Section 8 vouchers to a project. And so the people who get in there will be charged at 30% AMI, but the project will get the full 60% AMI through the subsidy of the Section 8 vouchers. Maybe more information than you needed, but.
No, it's interesting. I think I read something about the Section 8 vouchers that they may be being revoked from the federal level. Have you read anything about that?
I haven't. I'll look into that. Nothing has come up from the housing authority saying that these ones are in danger, and certainly they go through a really deep dive in underwriting to ensure that all the sources of funding are secured before the lenders and and all those folks sign off on that. So I'm not too worried, but I'll certainly look into it and follow up if it seems like there's an issue.
Thank you. And again, I think it's noteworthy that we're getting such a low AMI for 30 of those units. I think that's really a good thing for the city. Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then I think we're gonna adjourn our meeting today at just a little past 6. Not too shabby. Thanks, everybody.